So I'm Emily Cunningham, and so as Alice said, I am the Triumph Research Assistant, and myself and Isla, who's also on this call, are going to be doing a presentation about a piece of research that the Triumph Youth Advisory Group have been leading on and have created completely from scratch, essentially. So just again, to reiterate a little bit of what Alice said, so the Triumph Youth Advisory Group are a group of, I think around about 12 young people, currently now all between the age of, I think, 18 and 24, but they were set up at the beginning of the Triumph project, so about 4 years ago now, and actually have more or less stayed with the project over time, even through COVID. So that's who the Youth Advisory Group are. Isla, should I add anything else to that?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think so. We started off as like 16 of us, and like when we all started, it was like 16 to kind of 20, and then as we've kind of grown with the project, we're now about 12 young people, and all between 18 and 25 now. Awesome.
So yes, this is a project called How Adults Can Put in the Work to Help Young People Feel Understood. We're currently in the decision-making process about what quote we're going to use in our title, because we feel it's important to have a little quote from our participants, but we're not sure yet. So how do we come up with this research? So Isla's going to be chatting a bit about this slide.
So the Youth Advisory Group have obviously been involved in Triumph from the start, and kind of done some stuff previously around kind of assessing funding applications and things for other research projects. And then we found out that we were going to get like our own budget to do research, which was really exciting. I think it was a bit kind of, we were overwhelmed with choice at first, because this was, for like the vast majority of us, our first time like really getting this much control in doing a piece of research. So we had some kind of facilitated conversations with like the advisory group, as well as Emily and Christina, to kind of narrow down what we were interested in researching. And then kind of split off into different groups as well, because we had some young people who were interested in kind of the budgeting side of it, some who wanted to help with like literature reviews and things. So the two main ideas that we were really interested in that came out of those discussions were feeling understood by adults when seeking support, whether that was to do with mental health specifically, or kind of general support that young people need during their life. And separately, we also were really interested in the idea of what life skills young people need when transitioning to adulthood. So we kind of split the budget, but decided to focus predominantly on the Feeling Understood project. So the first kind of ideas that we had that this came out of were quite focused on like the intersectionality of young people's lives, and whether the adults that support them need to have things in common with them, like whether it's easier for LGBT young people to get support from LGBT adults and things like that. But really, when we were having those discussions, we couldn't all agree on whether that was important. And ultimately, what we felt was the most important was feeling understood, whether that person had things in common with you or not. So that's what we've really decided to explore through this project, is what it means to be understood, how young people are understood, and how that interacts with the support they get and the impact that has on their mental health.
Awesome, thanks, Isla. So how do I go to the next slide? There we go. So in terms of carrying this out, so myself and Isla and Christina McMillan, who is on this call and is going to be answering some questions a bit later, and is also a co-PI on this project, and the key contact within the Triumph network for working with young people. I should have mentioned you earlier, Christina. I'm sorry I didn't. So the three of us talked a lot about how we wanted to do our field work, and because obviously a lot of the Triumph network work has been happening online because of COVID, we were really keen to do in-person workshops, and because also the network and our youth advisory group has representation from across the UK, we were also really keen to do 4 workshops with young people from across the UK to represent our UK-wide membership. So we had 4 workshops in person, which was logistically challenging, but very, very rewarding, in St Andrews and London and Belfast and Cardiff. And we'll chat a little bit about some of the different dynamics and stuff that happened in those workshops later on. So at least one YAG member from that region of the UK was facilitating with Isla and myself as well. So we were really keen to make sure that our YAG members were there and involved in actually leading those workshops as well. So once we collected all that data, so the workshops themselves were not recorded, and we thought that was quite important because we didn't want our participants to feel kind of self-conscious about what they were saying, and obviously a lot of very sensitive topics were being discussed. So as you can see in some of the pictures over here, so we had tabletop worksheets and our participants would write down stuff on Post-its. So a lot of it is, all that data is just from Post-it notes and sort of paraphrasing and stuff. But we had a lot of data, we had a lot of Post-it notes, and we had a Triumph residential a couple of months ago where the youth advisory group basically did a thematic analysis process of sorting that data into different ideas and themes and seeing what were kind of the most dominant ideas and themes and focusing basically on these key questions here. So this was a little section, the data analysis, lots of like Post-it notes and writing and stickers and stuff, very kind of visual, kind of hands-on analysis, quite different, I would say, potentially to the kind of analysis that a lot of academics are maybe used to in social research, which can often involve in vivo and stuff. So yeah, this was quite a different process, but a really good kind of visual process. So essentially, we've now collected data from this first section of this project, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing further down the line for the project. And we're now in the process of collaborating on a paper. So I'll just move on to findings. So Isla, if you want to kick off on findings.
So the main kind of things that we've really found from the workshop so far is kind of the feelings that young people get when they're understood versus misunderstood. So the kind of overwhelming feedback we got was that being understood or feeling understood really helps young people feel confident in themselves, but also in seeking support for the future as well. So kind of the likelihood of young people seeking support is quite dependent on whether they feel understood or misunderstood in their past experiences. So we got a lot of feedback about like the confidence level of young people, how hopeful and validated they feel, and that really does impact on their mental health. So on the kind of flip side of that, there's a lot of frustration and like mistrust of adults that comes from feeling misunderstood as well. So a lot of people said things like that their mental health would spiral downwards, or that they would really be put off from speaking to adults in future if they'd had an experience of feeling misunderstood. Kind of contrary to what we'd initially set out with in the youth advisory group with this research, most of our participants did say that it isn't necessary for adults to have shared experience with young people when they're supporting them. But a lot of people said that it can really help, even just as a starting point, to kind of moving towards feeling really understood by the adult and kind of getting a strong working relationship. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that young people were saying had made them feel misunderstood was just a lack of kind of common courtesy being present in the relationship. And they said that it was really important that they just felt that adults were just being polite to them, treating them like a person and actively listening to what they were saying, in order for them to feel that they were being understood and forming a strong relationship. So kind of one of the things that we've picked out is obviously one of the themes of the Triumph Network is kind of more at-risk groups such as LGBT young people and care experienced young people. So we did find that there were some like crossover themes that were coming out particularly strongly with the two workshops we did in Belfast and London, which were specifically, Belfast was specifically care experienced young people, and London was specifically LGBT young people. We did find that there were some like particularly strong themes coming out of there, like mistrust of the police and social workers that seemed to be quite common ground for those groups. So we are looking at kind of putting more of a focus on those groups going forward.
Awesome, thank you, Isla. Yeah, and it was just yeah, I think as Isla said, it was interesting and in a way kind of sad, but also kind of hopeful that a lot of what was being said did come down to sort of common courtesy, which hopefully means that maybe there are some things that might be fairly simple to change when we look at kind of some of the implications of this research. And just to flag this, so this is basically a screenshot of our kind of a stage of our thematic analysis process where we put basically the post-it notes that we'd been working on for our thematic analysis onto an online platform called Miro, or Miro, however you want to pronounce it, which is, again, a really, really good platform for doing collaborative analysis when you are in different parts of the country or just doing remote social research as well. So that was really useful. So we thought it would be useful to kind of spotlight some of the key quotes / post-it notes from some of our participants from these workshops. And essentially these to us kind of felt like they really represented what was being said across the workshops. So there was definitely, so particularly kind of looking at these two post-it notes, there was a lot of kind of conversations from our participants about the tension between being treated like children and patronized and kind of told what to do and said, you know, you should be doing this, you should be saying this, you shouldn't be saying this. And then also, especially at the point of a young person turning 18, suddenly being kind of abandoned by the system and having to be kind of left to navigate adult support systems as well. And that kind of real tension between suddenly 1 minute being treated like children and the other minute being treated like adults, and that being a really difficult jump to be made for young people.
Emily, sorry to interrupt, but just 1 minute.
Okay, right, I will zoom through this then. So essentially, yeah, you can read those yourselves, but one of our favorite post-it notes that was put on the one of the workshop worksheets was "Don't be a douche," which we're quite keen to have in our in our paper title as well, but we're not sure how it would go down in the academic world. But anyway, so really quickly, I don't know, Isla, if you wanted to chat about one or two of these in the surprises section.
So kind of going into this, a lot of us didn't really have, that much idea of what to expect, but there were still some things that kind of surprised us during the course of doing the research. So obviously we had gone into it kind of feeling like it would come out quite strongly that people valued having shared characteristics or experience. And while a lot of people did say that that would help as a starting point with building a relationship, it really didn't come out strongly at all that people felt that you needed to share characteristics to feel understood. It really surprised me working with a lot of different kind of adults, whether that was like youth workers and researchers and things, that a lot of the young people going into this felt very intimidated by kind of moving into the academic world, feeling like we didn't have that much kind of knowledge about kind of doing research. But then speaking to kind of academics and things that kind of helped us along with this, there were quite a lot of academics that were quite intimidated by working with young people as well. So it really surprised us that kind of both of us felt a bit awkward about it. And yeah, we kind of didn't realize until we delved into it how many layers there were to feeling understood and just how many questions would come up, like, is being understood and feeling understood the same thing? And how difficult it would actually be to describe what feeling understood means.
Yeah, I think that's the crux of it, is just everybody uses the word understanding, but once you start to explore it, it becomes very like nebulous. And so then just quickly to kind of finish, lessons. I mean, again, we're going to talk about quite a lot of this stuff, I think, on the panel, which I think is coming up next or soon. Just really important to be adaptable when you're working with young people, but also when you're doing co-production, and the ability to think on your feet. You do get used to it. It is a bit scary at the beginning, but you do get used to it. Making sure that you understand everybody's boundaries and capacities. Not everyone has to be involved all of the time, but what's important is making sure that you are giving everyone the opportunity to be involved, and equal opportunities to be involved when they want to be. And just there are differences and nuances to recruiting participants through different processes. So recruiting through organizations and friendship groups was something we did for the different workshops, and they definitely created different workshop dynamics, which again, we might be able to cover in the panel a bit later. Just to finish, the next steps are, so Christina has been supporting the YAG basically to be piloting some interview questions for interviewing young people and adults to really kind of delve into this topic in more detail. So that's going to be what we're going to be focusing on for the next couple of months. So thank you, everyone. And that's us finished.